All right, quick little update. As far as I know, everything went well in the surgery. My arm is completely numb. I still have a nerve block in, so I'm not sure how bad this is going to hurt once that wears off. I refused any opioids for personal reasons. Just watched a friend spiral to a very dark place after they had this exact same injury and they ended up with an opioid addiction. I'll manage mine with ibuprofen and Tylenol, if that. So, yeah, here we are. Literally, I can't use my my right arm. I'm having to use my left hand for everything, and that's interesting. So, making content that requires typing is probably not in the cards for today. I am going to relax. Thank you, everyone, for the well wishes. And once I have a more relevant update, I will share it. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for the well wishes again. Do you think you have bad chest genetics? No. Do you think I have bad chest genetics? I'm not going to lie to you, man. The first time I recorded this answer, I was not this nice. But then I realized, man, what if my mama listens to this and she starts questioning whether or not she raised me right? So, no, bro, I don't got bad chest genetics. Out of all my upper body pushing muscles, my chest overpowers the rest of them. It's probably the only decent upper body push muscle that I have, which is why I have repped 4 plates on the low incline Smith. Repped 4 plates. Your deadlift max. In what scenario would you attribute success to hard work and values rather than luck and circumstances? In every fucking one, man. In 99.9% of cases, that's what I would attribute it to. This is such a silly question, and it's a good example of nerdy people hyper intellectualizing absolutely everything to strip away the grit and the grind and the emotion of human experience, the things that actually make life worth living, that make people do cool shit. Just take it all away and turn it into something intellectual. Listen, man, would you rather have your heart or your brain? Well, guess what? You die without either one, right? You need both. Outside of Bitcoin millionaires, I can't think of another example of somebody that I personally know that was basically just sitting around jerking off on their couch and came into a lot of money. Everybody else that I know, especially real entrepreneurs, not somebody that struck gold with a lucky investment, but real entrepreneurs. Real entrepreneurs grind, man. When my first business did its first year of revenue over $1 million, I was literally working 18 hours a day. I was doing shipping, I was doing receiving, I was doing sales, I was doing marketing. There were times where I would source merchandise, have it shipped to a port, pick it up in a semi-truck myself, drive for 12 hours straight to make a faster turnaround and make higher margins. Listen, man, the vast majority of people that want to talk to you about how hard work and values don't matter is because they don't have values and they don't work hard. They've never in their entire life, not once, given their whole heart and soul to something, put everything on the line, worked 16, 17, 18 hours a day for months on end without a break. They've never done it. So how can they comment on what portion of that contributes to success? But at the end of the day, did I get lucky? Hell yeah, I got lucky. You need your heart and your brain to live, man. Luck and work. There's been a lot of times in my life where people said, you're so lucky because of this or because of that. And there's even a few dickheads that like to take it a step further and say it's because of white privilege, which is hilarious because I'm not even white. I'm half white passing, it's the same thing, right? Or because, I had a mom that always supported me or whatever other reason that they want to say. And you know what I usually say? Yeah, you're right. I'm so grateful, so grateful for all the luck that I've had. So grateful to live in a place and a time where your hard work and values translated into action actually produce results. Because no matter what other people will tell you, they do. And work does matter and work does produce results, especially when you have just enough luck. So yeah, man, you gotta be grateful that you're even here, that you made it, that you were born. It's 1 in a billion or who knows what kind of absurd math, that you haven't died of cancer or a car accident or who knows what else. But again, where's all the Pornhub millionaires just sitting around getting lucky? I don't know. If you're young enough that you haven't really decided your view on this yet, work hard. Believe in hard work. It's gonna take you much further than blaming everyone and everything around you for your own circumstances. Take ownership and work your ass off. It pays off, trust me. Which horizontal pulling motion should a beginner do? You mean rows, right, bro? You mean rows. beginners are not a monolith, so it's not like every single beginner out there has access to the exact same equipment, so I can't make some generalized universal recommendation. Here's what I will say. Beginners do not need to be worried about doing seated chest supported rows with a lengthened bias. The best row options for your average beginner is going to be a barbell row and a dumbbell row. Basic, simple, easy to overload, gets the job done. Why do you like short biased tricep exercises? I've literally never said that. So I don't really know where this is coming from. I'm not sure why you think that's my position. I have repeatedly said that the reason why I do cross-body extensions, which by the way are not short bias the way that I set this up, is because it is one of the only tricep isolations that does not hurt my right elbow. And that is the most important criteria for exercise selection. Make sure that the shit you do doesn't hurt. That said, one more time, everybody, if you do not have like a fat-free mass index of 20, 21, you do not need to be worried about short bias, lengthened bias. Like, get your bench press to 2 plates first. This stuff comes way later. First of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody who left me messages like this. I know I look haggard as fuck, even worse than usual. And my usual is like a cross between a hobbit and a homeless person, so it's saying something. I know I sounded super mad in those first few answers, but I'm not actually mad at all. I'm super fired up. I was just able to walk my dogs by myself and pick up their shit, which, believe it or not, is harder than you would think. And look, I can hold a knife. This one's been chewed to bits by Kona when she was a puppy. It's my favorite one. Anyway, I'm like the worst PT patient ever because I'm always pushing boundaries, and I'm going to push the boundaries on this shit safely in my own way, but we are going to recover from this super fast. So surgery went well. Thanks again, everyone. Time to rehab. What body parts would you say are strong and weak on your own physique? So I have to put this into context first because this type of thinking is absolute poison to 99% of my audience. Most of my audience are novices who are in denial that they're novices. They've never run a full body linear progression program and actually finished it. They can't bench 2 plates. They can't squat 3 plates. They can't deadlift 4 plates. That's the majority of my audience. Okay? So for me to sit here and say, I got this strong body part and this weak body part without putting that into context, they listen to this content thinking that it applies to them. Even though we are not on the same level of training advancement, they somehow will think that it applies to them. And I'm guilty of this too. I talk about length and bias movements and strength curves and stuff that doesn't apply to novices when most of my audience is novices. So let's put this into context because I want to share how I actually think about this before I answer the question. My goal is to be competitive at a national level. So what body parts do I have that are at a competitive level nationally right now? Adductors, that's it. It's literally the only one. Adductors is the only muscle group that I have that could be good enough to compete at a national level. Because my adductors are so big, it makes my hamstrings pop more in side poses. It makes my legs look much bigger than they are. However, I need more quad sweep, way bigger quads in order for my quads to be at a national level, and hamstrings could use more size as well. Calves, they don't get judged anyway, let's be honest. But adductors are the only muscle group in my whole body. And that's on my strongest set of muscle groups, which is lower body. As for my back, it's competitive at a local level, and my side delts, front delts, and triceps are not even competitive at a local level. Should a beginner do cable lateral raises or stick with basics like dumbbells? It doesn't matter, man. This is one of the most interesting things to me, is that the optimal crowd focuses so much on exercise selection. And it does matter, but it matters way more the more advanced that you get for two and three reasons, really. The more advanced you get, you lose more and more mobility as you gain size. You pick up nagging injuries. Things just don't work the same, and you have to be careful about picking things that don't hurt you. That's not a problem for beginners. 2, sometimes advanced lifters really need to be hyper-specific about targeting certain tissue because they have to bring up their outer tricep, right? That's the judges specifically said outer tricep. Completely irrelevant to a beginner. And 3, they've gotten so strong that they actually have to pick stuff like reach RDLs from a deficit because they can't recover from normal RDLs anymore. Beginners should just pick the movements that they have access to. Is there any merit to the idea that stable movement patterns have less carryover to the real world? No, this whole thing is born out of like this really silly discussion about stabilizer muscles. And people really truly think that quote unquote stabilizer muscles are some tiny little unique muscles with weird names that you've never heard of, and that they just don't get trained unless you do free weight movements. In reality, the stabilizer muscles with little weird and unique names on stuff like a bench press are called the biceps, the lats, the traps. And guess what? They get trained when you do back work. This is utter nonsense, man. Have you ever seen a hypertrophy trainee with mobility so bad that it affects their execution on exercises? I've really only seen this in elderly populations, and essentially what you can do is use the weight itself as a loaded stretch. So have them pause for a 2 or 3 count in the fully lengthened position for them, and every week that fully lengthened position is going to get a bit deeper and a bit deeper and a bit deeper, just the same way that it does for everybody else, because full range of motion training actually acts as mobility work. I have never prescribed outside mobility or stretching to fix a flexibility issue for a hypertrophy trainee. Just train full range of motion, pause in the lengthened, and you will get more flexible over time. How can I make my squat, bench, and overhead press, notice he didn't say deadlift, and that tells me all I need to know, really strong while maintaining my main focus on hypertrophy? Bro, this is really a permission-seeking question in disguise. I know, because you've asked me a similar question at least 3 or 4 times. If you want to train certain lifts for strength, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it, man. It's your life. You don't need someone's permission. That said, you could just get strong enough to the point where you're repping other people's maxes in the hypertrophy rep range. When doing lying leg curls, should you do full range of motion and bring the pad all the way to your buttocks? I like to bring the pad all the way to my buttocks because it gives me a point of terminal range of motion, so I can standardize the range of motion for every single rep. However, something that I've been running into more and more and more with people who subscribe to the Team Full ROM kind of philosophy on leg curls is that they are launching the leg curls with tons of momentum, and they're only getting the pad to touch their butt with tons of momentum. And without that momentum, they can't do it. So don't do that, but otherwise standardize your range of motion. I totally annihilated my CNS. Should I take a total week off of lifting? Some lifting? Bro, you did not totally annihilate your CNS. This is just like made up buzzword stuff. Okay? If your performance has declined across the board due to central fatigue accumulating, take a deload, my man. A deload. If your joints still hurt after a normal deload, take a active recovery phase where you do take a full week off of the gym right after the deload. Other than that, you just need a normal deload. Is collagen supplementation useful to increase joint resiliency? That's a very fancy way of asking if a supplement can fix your joint problems. No, it cannot. People will do anything except for take time off to fix tendonitis. It's amazing. Does it make more sense to do all of your pull downs in one day and all of your rows on another day for back? No, because most of you who listen to this, all of you really, are just not advanced enough to be worrying about needing to separate your lat and upper back work to that degree. That would only be relevant on like a pro level body part split where certain things need to be heavily emphasized in order to see progress. For most of you, you should be training lats and upper back at least twice a week, so it makes more sense to have a row and a pull down on each day rather than splitting it up into 2 separate days. And I would say exactly the same thing for chest and shoulders as well. It makes more sense for the vast majority of novices and intermediates to have a push day structure rather than a body part split with chest and shoulders on separate days. I have moved all of my abdominal work to rest days. Is this a good idea? It's a terrible idea. Here's the thing. The amount of recovery that you get from a day that is completely off versus the amount that you get from a day that has even one set is significant. And the amount of stimulus that you get from one set is not significant. So taking a full off day where you would have got this huge recovery boost and doing some hard ab work, even for only 2 or 3 sets, is a net negative in my opinion. I would rather toss that in at the end or at the beginning of another session where you're doing, mostly seated work or something like seated pull down, seated rows. You could put it in the beginning of a machine-based back day. I would not move your hard ab work to off days, no. What exercises would you recommend for adductors for a home gymmer? I do not recommend trying to isolate your adductors at home. I mean, you could try to put like a cable on your leg and like do a leg crossover type of thing, but you are not going to be able to go heavy enough. It's going to have a huge stability problem once you do get heavy enough, and it just largely wastes your time. Do squats and then get a real gym membership to do the seated adductor machine. Do you think it makes intuitive sense to use reverse linear loading when on a cut? Should the weight go down and reps go up as your body weight declines? No, this is backwards. I actually don't understand why people plan to get weaker on a cut anyways. Unless you're getting exotically lean, like single digits for men or some people under 12% or so, you really shouldn't be losing strength on a cut. At the very, very worst, you should be maintaining. And I don't know how anyone can watch me week after week gaining strength and think, you know what I should plan to do? Get weaker in a cut. If anything, lower reps per set when you're dieting is going to make more sense because you're in a glycogen scarce environment, and lower amounts of reps per set are less glycotically demanding than higher rep sets. So I really don't think this makes any sense at all. What do you think is a reasonable amount of sets per week to do for forearms? Well, if you've already been doing curls for 2 or 3 years on a consistent program, but you haven't been skipping, and your forearms are still disproportionately underdeveloped compared to your biceps, you need to do as many sets as it's going to take for them to grow, which is usually at a minimum 2 or 3 sets once per week, and maybe, significantly more than that based on whether or not you're progressing. So there is no magic number. That is the end of Q&A 85. I got it done. If you enjoy the Q&As, please consider becoming a supporter on Patreon if you don't get a seizure from me doing this first. If you'd like to work with me directly, I still have a few slots for half-price coaching, so shoot me a DM on Instagram or an email, which you can find in the description box on YouTube, which is the same place that you can find my ebooks on YouTube. And the link to my ebooks is in my bio on Instagram. All right. I think I've covered all the advertising shit. So, I don't know when I'm going to be in the gym next because I have no idea how bad my arm is going to hurt when this nerve block fully wears off. It's already starting to wear off. Like, you can see I can actually move my arm and shit. And I just feel like a very intense warmth at the surgery incision site. Not that much pain yet, but yeah. We'll see. We'll see. So I'll be back, but who knows when.